permissions, but we found this before. I just gotta check here, Drew. How you doing, by the way?
Doing awesome, big guy. It's a Sunday. I think this is our first Drew Jay's talk on a Sunday.
I think it is, and let me just tell you, um, it's a good day.
Yeah, it's miserable out there, at least where I'm located, but it's a good day because our boy Manoah is hitting the hill again. And as much as, for whatever reason, he seems to be someone that everyone's rooting for. Even though, like, I can see how he'd be a divisive guy, but it just seems like there's everything else that comes around Jay fandom comes with this sort of darkness, right? Like, oh, even yesterday when they had a 4-0 lead, the way that the announcers were talking, it's just like, oh my God, like what a horrible lead. They've only got a 4. Like it was almost like an inevitability that it wasn't going to work out. And I mean, the day after the Leafs lose, I can understand why Toronto's got that vibe. But it's not that, like, I just found it's not that way with Manoah. I don't know if you found the same thing, but there just seems to be this assumption he's going to be okay. Wherein usually with Toronto sports, it's the other way around.
Well, Buck Martinez, that I think Buck made up this nickname, or it's possible that Alec got it when he was younger, but Buck Martinez started calling Alec Manoah the Big Puma. And here's a hilarious daisy chain of thought. Florida Panthers in the National Hockey League are going to go and play the Boston Bruins. Panther, Puma. So if the Panther is a champion, that should also mean that Alec Manoah is a champion. Do you see where I'm going there? Do you see?
It kind of, man, but at the same time, it's sort of like the argument is kind of like if an eagle soars through the air, so does a penguin. You know what I mean? Like they're both birds, man, and you like pumas are not panthers. So like here's
the neighborhood.
I understand what you're trying to get at there, and I love the positivity, but no, today, I'm just going to go with no.
Drew, today is Sunday, May 5th, 12:02 on this day. Happy Drew Jay's talk. How's everything with you today?
Everything with me is amazing. Everything is feeling good. I was away the last couple of days traveling for work, which is why we've had to push things to Sunday. So I appreciate your patience and all of the listeners as well as we bounce things around. We're live some weeks, we're recorded some other weeks. So I'm feeling great, man. It's good to be home, and it's good to have a couple of days in my own bed and the chance to watch the Jays a little bit. Because honestly, when I'm on the road, I tend to watch on replay, and I often already know how things work out. So it's harder to stay engaged. So it's nice to be watching live.
Well, we had an up and down week in terms of the score, in terms of the wins, but there was some nice things about this week. We did right off the top get Kevin Kiermaier back, which I'm excited about, and you know, even though he's in our 9-hole, I like KK.
I love KK. I like him a lot, and I really like the interview that he gave this week. I don't know if you had a chance to see. I think in the post game after he hit the home run.
No, actually, please tell me. I didn't see that one.
There was just this sort of realness to Kiermaier, and he was talking a lot about how he knew that then they all knew the team wasn't. And he was sort of, I find when Kiermaier gives interviews, he talks directly to the fans. And he was just like, we're trying hard, everybody. Like, we know we're not delivering. Like, just so you know, we're putting in the work. And it was just sort of this really humanizing interview. It was the type of thing that I know you try to convey to people, right? But it was really, he talked directly to the fans saying, we know we're not doing what we need to do, and it's bugging us basically, and don't think we're mailing it in. And I think that was really something that took the edge off just a little bit. And I really like that. And I've liked him since he got here. And I love the fact that he wants to be in Toronto. And I think that's why he gets some breaks from the fans as well, especially since it's been a miserable start. But it's nice to have him back and wonder how much he's going to play, because that does bode well that a guy who's that good defensively, we're like, well, maybe he'll be sitting out some days.
Kevin Kiermaier is maybe in the mid to tail end of his career, but this is a guy who stole a lot of gold gloves away from Kevin Pillar, from Superman. And that was a guy that we all got excited about. Of course, KK with the infamous scorecard, or not scorecard, the catcher's card from Alejandro Kirk. You remember that play? And then he became enemy number one and then all of a sudden he joins the Jays, and instant fan favorite.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm happy. I'm happy he's healthy and back. And
And I don't think we talk enough about how Hollywood it was that in the first game at home, and it's really the only one I can think of. Remember when they built the new fence with the little
yeah,
divot out in
yeah.
center field? The idea was Kiermaier is going to be pulling stuff back. And I think he did it the first game. Everyone was like, this is going to be awesome. I don't remember it happening since. How about you?
Well, it was the home opener, and I was there, and that was a special grab, and it was it was almost like a statement piece, right? Like, here I
Yeah.
am. We haven't seen a ton of balls robbed in that exact spot, but the hitter's got to hit the ball there first, right, before they can rob
Yeah.
it.
Hey, man, I
Um,
can't believe how the stadium's become a pitcher's park. Like that, the ball flew out of there, man. Like it was, 3 times a week you saw one ripped into the left center field second deck. And I don't know, it's weird, like how physics works, man. But the ball is now maybe it's the Jays are different, but the other teams aren't smashing the ball out of the dome either. Like it looks like it's turned into a pitcher's park.
it is interesting to see. We saw George Springer, and I'm not calling him out. Like, George is a all star, but we saw George kind of diving for a ball that he probably should have got to, and then that got past him. We've seen a couple of balls in the left field corner that Davis Schneider doing his best on, but he's not really a left fielder. Um, so the park has played an interesting role. Um, one good thing that speaking of a bit of a segue here, Kevin Gossman.
Mm.
Nice to see Gossman back. He threw, I think he got 8 strikeouts in his start. I'll take that from Kevin Gossman into the 6th inning.
You know what it was too, man? It was how he was peppering the fastball. Like he was just right on the black constantly. And I think the guys on the broadcast were talking about it as well. But I love the idea of how they've explained the that you throw the fastball low because that's exactly what the splitter looks like. And the thing about swinging at splitters is that I don't think Major League Baseball players ever look worse than when they're swinging at a split finger because as a regular human, we've never seen what it actually looks like for those first 12 feet, right?
Right.
It's exactly the same. And then it just like disappears. But what got me about Gosman on that start was that he was really locating well. And I know I sound like a broken record with a TV commentator now, but everything else came from that. Like he just seemed to be painting the fastball wherever he needed it, 94, 95, 96. We act like that's not fast.
Right.
Like located, that stuff is amazing. And you know what? You can still blow a 95 mile per hour fastball. Remember back in the 80s and 90s, like somebody who threw absolute smoke had a 95 mile per hour fastball. Like Nuke LaLoosh and Bull Durham, that's how hard he threw, right? And so now you'd sort of be like Trevor Richards out there. Nuke McRichards is out there throwing the changeup. So,
Well, I mentioned Gossman because it's important, and I want to share this with everyone listening. It's important to know that a baseball career is not a straight line, and it's not a straight vertical line. Um, some of our favorite pitchers of all time, Roy Halladay. Uh, some of our favorite pitchers, even I wouldn't call Marcus Stroman my favorite pitcher, but there are peaks and valleys, right? And I think that's true for everyone. Um, but it's true for Kevin Gossman, and this is a guy who has he's consistently in the last few years anyway, top of the Cy Young voting, right? And compare that with our big Puma. Compare that with Alek Manoah. Wanted to just sort of draw those lines, right? Like even Gossman has said, "Hey, don't worry, like this has happened to me." When Gossman with the Orioles, I think he got cut, right? And so let's talk about Alek Manoah. Like that's the big story of the day. Are you?
well, I'm excited. I really am excited because I'm excited this way because the talent must still be there. But again, and because he's very young and he has that ability to know that he's done this before, as opposed to hopefully get things back together and then convincing yourself that you're a major league pitcher, you're going to feel when you get back there that you're back to being a major league pitcher. And I
Right.
think that he's got that going for him that other people don't. 12 strikeouts in the last start is amazing. It's just his inconsistency has been what the challenge has been, is how do you keep putting it all together? So I think with Manoah, more so than a lot of other people, he has this one game is so important for him because it's going to shape how everybody talks about the comeback now. If it's an absolute disaster, I think maybe some of that goodwill starts to fade away and maybe some of that faith starts to fade away. If it's middling or better, I think that it stays stronger. And let's face it, why am I excited? One, I really don't want to see a talented young person implode like this.
Right.
But also, let's face it, he'd be a fifth starter. And I want to cheer for a baseball team that has a good Alek Manoah as their fifth starter. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah. Yeah. If Alec is our fifth starter, and if he can do, I've heard a talk on the broadcast about, hey, if he can get 80%, I think it was Schneider. I think it was Schneider who said if we can get 80% of Alek Manoah, that's still pretty darn good. Um,
Yeah.
I have a lot of faith that he has had some downs and he's got a lot to prove. There's a lot of people that are iffy on him, but I'm all in on Alec. I mean, you've seen
You
it
know,
before, Drew, but I'm wearing the jersey.
well,
Um,
it's like this is what's so great about this particular team. Obviously, the offense, we could, other channels are going to talk about the offense, but Alek Manoah is a front end starter talent, or was 2 years ago,
yeah,
and the Jays are missing him, and getting him back would be a nice bonus pitching wise. I mean, I was absolutely thrilled with Rodriguez. I think we got something there. I really think we've got a Major League Baseball pitcher there. And so all of a sudden, I was like, I don't really want to rush Manoah back because I don't see a place for him. Now with the injury, there very much is. So I think that's what's a really positive thing to look at, is that the Jays have been without now all year this extremely talented pitcher, the type that people trade really good prospects for at the trade deadline. So I always like to look, instead of thinking about the trade deadline, I think about internally. Like last year, we added Chad Green at the trade deadline, for
right.
instance, which usually would have cost you something. We can add Manoah early on in the year if it really turns out that way. And let's see what happens to Rodriguez down the road. It certainly wouldn't hurt to have more arms in the bullpen right now,
Yeah,
obviously. I'm Am I all in on Manoah? I am all in on the idea that he can be Manoah again.
yeah,
Whether he will be, I know I still don't know the full story about him not reporting last year. And, I always see he strikes me as a guy who could be difficult to deal with because he's had a lot of success very early and he's very competitive. So I can see how it might be hard at a young Alek Manoah before he's fully matured into to be a little bit of a handful on the personal side. And I think the fact we haven't heard much about it might be an indication of just that.
yeah. And look, like, I mean, he's still just a young professional, just kind of really getting his feet under him. It can't be easy to
22?
have. Yeah, is he? I'll tell you in a second here. Um, I don't have that memorized, but he's still young, relatively speaking. 26 years old.
Oh, is he that old? Oh, I thought he
Yeah,
was. Oh, because he went to college. That's right.
yeah, that's right. Um, you know, I don't love the what was sort of said about him last year, but I don't know, man. Is it all true, or was it Sportsnet just trying to get clicks? Right? We don't know. Um, the truth is, we have seen him, like, he pitches in Buffalo and then he drives back up to Toronto and he's hanging out in the big league bullpen and dugout, right? And when I see that, like, people have said, oh, why is Alec like, why was he there on opening day? Why is there? And for me, I think he wants to surround himself with excellence. I think he wants to be with the guys. And right or wrong, I think he has earned that spot. Um, Focusing on today, though, what do you think Alec needs to do for you, Drew Dudley, to feel like, hey, good job, Alec? Like, what do you need to see?
You know what? I hate to sound like Buck or the rest of the former catchers who do it, but
You
spot the
need
fast.
you need your cigar first. You need your cigar
Yeah,
and
spot the fastball. I think that's what I thought was so amazing about Gosman, and I think that's what makes Barrios so great as well. Is that regardless of how hard your fastball is, do you keep it out of the plate? Do you hit it in the inside part of the plate? Do you hit it on the outside corner of the plate? You do have the ability to throw a strike so that if your his slider isn't as sharp as it can be, that you can still throw strikes. Because what happens is if he can't spot his fastball, he really relies on that breaking pitch. And if that breaking pitch is breaking, amazing. If it's not, it gets crushed, right? Like
Right.
most breaking pitches.
Right.
But that to me, I think is what it is that you set up the breaking stuff with the fastball so that at least you can rely on good spot on your fastball and let your defense do a little bit of the job. But he has to be near the plate. I think, like, whether it's fastball, whether it's breaking ball, is he can't fall behind in counts. Because if he falls behind in counts and loses faith in his fastball, he goes to the breaking pitch. And if the breaking pitch isn't breaking hard, then what he's doing is he's throwing an average pitch, and it eventually gets hard by Major League Baseball players.
We were talking last week about the Barrio and how Vladdy kind of got shaken up by not having maybe his comfort zone. Um, we've heard John Schneider is adamant against personal catchers. If you're Schneider today, is Kirk catching? Because we know that the two of Alec Manoah and Alejandro Kirk have a pretty tight bond.
Yeah, he's catching today for me. Look, you could be against personal catchers, but that doesn't mean on any given day that it isn't right to hook up one person with another.
Right.
And so I think what they want to avoid is getting it to the point where if ever in a pressure-filled situation Danny Jansen has to catch, that it becomes a problem. But I think on a day like today, where confidence is going to be such a big issue, not only for the guy pitching, but for the people behind him, like, let's face it, he starts getting lit up, it's going to sag the shoulders of the guys behind him too, because they want him to succeed, but also they know that they don't have a major league pitcher on the mound if Manoah's not at it. Like, he battles well, but if he's neither one of his major pitchers are working, that you know that you got a AAA pitcher or a AA pitcher up there, right? So
Right.
it's so important in this game for things to go right well. So why not make the highest possible comfort level? And I think that means Alejandro Kirk.
Do you have a short leash on Alp today? Like, do you let him do 3 great innings, or do you if he struggles, do you leave him in? What's your sort of thought there?
I would have a short leash on Alec today, depending on whether, if things start to go sideways, it's because his stuff isn't there and his location isn't there, or if it's something else. Like, you can give up 5 runs. Like, I think Barrios gave up a couple this week and not pitch bad. So I think it really does depend. If his stuff isn't there, if he's not locating, yeah, it's a short leash. But if he's putting the stuff there, if he's locating and they're putting the bat on the ball, or there's some errors like you saw at the beginning of the game for the Nats yesterday, it's different. Like, I don't want to hedge my bets too much, but if he's not locating, I have a very short leash. Otherwise, let's play it out and see how it goes.
Right. Well, just to close the loop on the comparison between Gossman and Alec, obviously you can't compare them as pitchers, but I just like the human comparison, right? Like, Gossman was a pretty good pitcher at times for the Orioles in the mid 20 teens, but he was let go. He was designated for assignment by the Atlanta Braves, and he had a bounce back season during the COVID shortened year, and then he goes off to he goes off to San Francisco Giants, and that's where he really had a reconnaissance. Renaissance. Sorry, Drew. You're the professional speaker. I just make movies. Drew's the one who does words good. But
and you make me look pretty when I say them.
Well, you do look pretty, but the fact is that Gossman really sort of had this second wave, and now I don't know that you need to change teams to have that second wave. But actually, side note, I just read this. Did you know that Gossman used to wear number 39, and he changed it when Roy passed away? He changed it to 34.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
It's kind of an interesting little tip. I didn't know that either.
I think that's really cool. I think it's also not teams, man. I think it's you change something. Remember, like, you change your pitch mix, or you change, like, Justin Turner. I was listening to the game yesterday, and they said that he added a leg kick. And we've heard that from a lot of pitchers, right? And Batista. And even it's weird. I know I talk about being a gamer with MLB The Show, but I always sort of was like, oh, mental change, whatever. And then I changed the way I hit. I changed where I placed my sight line and how I approached it, and all of a sudden could hit, and like in a pretty well. And so all of a sudden, I know it seems like a weird analogy, but I realized that you can, if you decide that you're going to go to the splitter more often. Remember when, oh my God, I've blanked on his name, pitched for the Jays for a while, then went on to the Yankees. Jay something got hit in the head. Who was the pitcher that got hit in the head with the line drive and came back from it?
I can see his face. Shoot.
But he shifted when he came with Pete Walker to pitching more up in the zone with the fastball. Verlander and the gang in Houston, right? They pick up on those guys, and the analytics say, okay, if you do this a little more, it's amazing how much your talent can be the same, but a different approach to which pitches you throw, which mix, for instance, the increased curveball usage by Kikuchi, as well as that change about him hiding the ball a little bit. He still has the same talent. But it's amazing how you can get to the major leagues and then say, okay, we're going to do it completely different than you did it through the minors, through college, through what got you drafted, and it works out. You see it with Robbie Ray, you see it with Kikuchi. You're talking about Turner had that change in the way he batted. Bautista did it. It's about some mental shift. Gausman and the splitter and how he used it. It's amazing that can happen to me. That all of a sudden you can get to the majors and then have a huge percentage change in your talent.
Right. Real quick, it was J Happ.
I knew there was a J in there.
Yeah,
that's
you
right.
great.
Yeah.
Drew, we had the announcement just the other day of the MLB Players of the Month, and one of your favorites, Jose Barrios, is the American League Pitcher of the Month.
Yes, absolutely amazing. And like we just finished talking about Gausman, who I think gets short shrift in terms of best pitchers in baseball. Like the guy led the American League in strikeouts. Like pitchers that strike more people out than anybody else. Like that's the whole point, right? And ultimately, now we're on to Barrios, who arguably is having a better season. And I think that it's a perfect example of how what I keep hoping will happen, math works. So Barrios had a terrible full season, which the math says should not have happened. But there's something about the reset of a new season and the mental side of the game. And now we've got the pitcher that we got a great deal on a 7-year front end major league starter with Jose Barrios. And I think maybe there's still this feeling that, oh, this is a mirage. And what we got with the 5 point whatever ERA was the real thing. That's how sports fans think. No, this is Jose Barrios. This is who he is. And it's amazing to watch.
Well, he had, I don't know if he still has, I have to look it up, but he had an ERA of 144, a whip of just over 1.01, pitched a major league high 43 2/3 innings in the first month of the year. That's pretty great.
Yeah, and I think what gets me is he looks so good. His last outing, and that's it. He gave up a couple of runs, right? But I think what we always have to remember is the power of the long ball. Is that a pitcher? Every major league pitcher makes mistakes, even those who throw a perfect game. The ones who get the perfect game are the one where the batter didn't hit the mistake. And Barrios got hit with a mistake or two, but overwhelmingly was extraordinary. Same with Kikuchi and when we got blown out, right? So for me, as long as that keeps happening, I still see the Jays as not falling below 500, and they can have a pretty lousy offense. But with that starting rotation, I think they're still going to be a 500 team, which isn't what we want. But the idea is, and this is baseball, things don't last the whole season. I just keep going back to the 25-5 or whatever Rays last April, right? Like,
yeah. They were special for a month, and then they did kind of return to the pack. I'm gonna take us away from the day-to-day.
Okay.
From the field for a minute here, Drew. In your professional career, and for those who don't know, pretty much everyone should know, but if you're new to the Drew Jays talk, my esteemed colleague here, my co-host to the stars, Drew, you travel around the world, giving speeches and motivating people. Is that too simplistic, or is it more important to say that you focus on leadership, like you help people find the best in who they are? Is that
I like that, man. I would take that any day of the week. Sure. I talk about leadership and I talk about personal accountability every day, but mostly, yeah, I love what you just said. I might steal it from my website.
Well, where I'm going with this, right, is your John Schneider. And it is, first week of October, 2023, and you make the call, whether it was your call or Ross Atkins or analytics, whether it was your call or not. You pull Barrios in the second inning, and he's dealing. How do you, Drew, as the person who motivates and picks people up, how do you repair Barrios this past offseason? What do you say to him? What do you tell him?
You know what's interesting, man, is the question is whether there needed to be something to repair. And you don't need to repair something that isn't broken. And I wonder, and I think maybe all of us as fans were broken more by that than Barrios was. We saw in the reaction right afterwards, he obviously disagreed with it, but I also don't think he was stunned by it. And I think that if they told him ahead of time, that decision to tell him was a good one, because I think you would have seen a much different reaction from Barrios if he had not been told ahead of time and probably had his opportunity to voice his objections to it. So I honestly probably think that if I'm John Schneider, I look at that, I have a conversation with Barrios and determine whether or not there's actually something that needs fixing. But I think what the decision that we do have to give credit for on the leadership decision is looping the player in ahead of time. And so the discussion and all the arguments and all the potential areas for conflict were dealt with ahead of time. And that's one thing I don't love about analytics, because I'm a big analytics guy.
Sure.
I think it can shed beautiful insight on the game and give people who aren't getting credit from the eye test credit that they deserve. The challenge is analytics are done over time, and teams win and lose in individual moments. And so analytics are great for regular season. I don't think they're great for playoffs, because I think the sample size gets too small for them to matter. And then I think individual moments, decisions, and personalities, day-to-day fluctuations, I think they matter a lot. And I think that's when baseball people need to be in the game, where analytics can say, yeah, sure, but they didn't know that Barrios was going to be dealing like that. And sports are like that. There are some days where people just have a different feel. They have a different, they can reach back farther. Things come easier to them. And on those days, they're special, and the numbers can't predict them. All you can do is make sure you got the right people who can spot them.
Well, you know that it's not pitching and defense that wins championships anymore. It's BABIP, FWAR, and negative zone ratings. So that's what wins championships.
Look, the Jays aren't hitting, but I don't think it's because they can't hit. And I think that that's why I stay upbeat, is because I've cheered for Jays teams that couldn't hit.
Yeah, of course.
Like Juan Francisco played third base, I believe, at one point, and was batting after Colby Rasmus. Like,
There's some names.
there were times where I was just like, this team can't hit. This team can hit, they're just not hitting.
Yeah.
And which allows me, if I may segue for a second, man, and go back if there was something you wanted to say and we didn't get to. Before we forget, Danny Jansen is back, and Danny Jansen is Danny Jansen, like the one that is criminally underrated, the one that is a 35-40 home run catcher if he plays 162 games, which I know we can't do, but he's back, and he's exactly what this team needed. And just think of this. Still no Bo, still no Vladdy, but we're starting to see the other guys can play. Varsho is a baseball player. Now, I'm going to wait until, end of May, middle of June before I decide if this is Varsho or this is Kevin Pillar every year in the first 2 months of the season.
Right.
But Danny Jansen's back, man, and Danny Jansen has added to this team.
It's almost like picking up a free agent at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
He's a leader. He's one of the longest, if not the longest, serving Jays in terms of on the roster. This is a guy who I think everyone else loves. It seems like that in the dugout, and what a special player. I like his new body armor. They were showing clips of that on the TV, and it seems like they custom made it for him. You and I were discussing this. I can't remember if it was on the broadcast or if it was just over text, but why these guys don't wear more armor when they're up to the bat. And I know, I think we were talking about it in person, maybe. And I think you were saying, what's the feel? You got to have that feel. But it don't. If you're Major League Baseball, and we're babying pitchers. We're not letting them do more than 100 pitches. We're not letting them go on 4 to 3 days rest, whatever it is. Um, like some of the pitchers in the early 1900s would do a game every other day, right? Like, uh, why aren't we saying, hey, players, you gotta have armor on, figure it out. Like, just learn how to swing with this stuff on, because there's so many guys that are going down with injury, Drew.
You know what's weird, man, is I don't get the injury thing. I've supposed here before that actually all the stuff that gets you into great shape also wears your body down in a way that leads to the injuries. So you can do more amazing things when you're healthy, but you stay healthy less frequently.
Yeah.
So that seems to be what Major League Baseball is. But you're right. We baby pitchers now. No, not 100, this many. But have you noticed that at the same time we're doing all of these new things to protect pitchers is when we start talking about an epidemic of pitcher injuries? Maybe the key is to just Jack Morris the hell out of it, let everybody throw 180. You know what I mean? But I'd be interested to know if there actually is more pitcher injuries now, or we just cover things a lot more closely now. Are there more pitcher injuries? There's a lot more pitchers coming back from injury. Like, think of all the amazing pitchers who would just be the story of that guy who would have been amazing if Tommy John surgery didn't exist.
Right.
Like, it would have just been all of these amazing pitchers from the past where we're like, he won 28 games that year and then blew out his arm. Yeah, well, that blew out his arm would have had him back in a year and a half now. So I don't know, man. Like, part of me is just like, whatever we are doing to, protect people, like load management, etc. I don't know what it's like to feel to be a professional athlete, but it seems to me that we're putting in so much training to do more amazing things on the field that it's making people stay off the field more often.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I mean, this is an aside from the Jays for a second here, but one of my favorite players is Trey Turner, and the Phillies just announced that he's out for 6+ weeks.
Just let me go to my fantasy team, actually.
Yeah, me too. And why I mentioned that is just it's not just the pitchers. It's freak accidents, right? We saw Joey Votto. Falling in the dugout, or not falling, but tripping on a bat, and he's still recovering.
Well, that's okay, man. We got Vogelbach's filling in. Wait, that is not what the show is about.
I was about to call you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, but we're seeing more injuries now. I don't have any stats. I'm gonna see if I can convince Greg Wells to come and join us on Drew Jay's Talk, because he's a sports,
the stat master.
He's a sports. Well, he knows stuff about the body that I don't think has been invented yet. But where I was going with that is to me, I don't know if it's you, if it feels like this to you, but it seems like this year there's a lot of people bitten by the injury bug. Right across baseball. Yeah,
and people aren't hitting either. I mean, they were talking about that on the broadcast, is that the Jays are not alone in these massive, and let's face it, we were talking via text too. Mookie Betts is hitting, and there are some big names who are doing what they're supposed to do, and they all play for the Dodgers.
Right.
They all play for the Dodgers. Well, Juan Soto actually certainly looks like he's Juan Soto, right? So, although an interesting question I wanted to talk to you about, but we probably don't have time as an aside here. Which of those, someone asked, they showed the Juan Soto trade, and they were like, which side of this trade do you want right now? Like with CJ Abrams and Juan Soto on the other side. So let's just pause what we're talking about, because I want to hear what you have to say to that. They showed the prospect package, and they showed, the other side, Juan Soto, and they're like, maybe time will tell that this isn't a terrible trade. What do you think?
How do we remain positive about the Apple TV broadcast? What can we say on Drew Jay's Talk? That's
oh my goodness! Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I will tell you.
Hey, we're positive about the Jays, man, but we can be realistic about our opinions. Yeah.
CJ Abrams, that's a fun player. Is he another Jazz Chisholm? I don't actually know. Career, he's got a positive WAR. Career batting average of 250. In just under 1,000 at bats, so let's call that 3 years. 243 hits. So
a bow season.
Yeah, he's got over his whole career though.
You sure take Bobby Witt Jr. over him though.
Oh yeah, 100%. I saw that graphic come up on the broadcast, and I was thinking to myself, Yeah, but it's Juan Soto, guys.
Yeah.
It's Juan Soto. I don't even think I heard the other names. There was 5 or 6 other names from.
Well, Mackenzie Gore, I believe, the pitcher as well,
Okay,
right? So
okay,
there's a couple of solid pitchers in there, which always makes it always makes a trade in the long run. If you can get a couple of serviceable starters out of it, it's usually a decent trade. I think Juan Soto's the best hitter in baseball, though. So,
yeah,
well,
yeah. When I heard that, it's
Otani's
like,
hard to vote against, I suppose, right? But
sure, sure. But when I heard about that, I'm thinking to myself, I know they got to fill time on the radio here, but no, you take Juan Soto every time. I think, Drew. That's my thought on the matter.
I apologize. This is some ADHD work going on here, but just before I forget, something you said is that it was like picking up a free agent for Danny Jansen.
Sure.
I love looking at it like I never really thought of it, but now I love looking. Just in the last couple of minutes, I've been going over in my head the idea of internal free agents. Last year, Chad Green was an excellent example. This year,
100%.
look at how many free agents the Jays still could potentially sign. Like in the offseason, you get excited about what your team could sign. So I'm going to choose to be excited about the fact that the Jays could still sign several free agents. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. could be added to this team as a free agent because right now the WAR, he is R. That might be a little harsh, but you know what I mean? Bo Bichette, internal free agent. Really, Alejandro Kirk, although continuing to play solid as a defender, is a free agent. I still think that we haven't seen in terms of Babe Schneider and Clement. I think Clement's going to be a ball player. I really, really do.
Well,
Now,
this
I'm not
is
going to count those in the same way, but like Manoah is a free agent. So I was just thinking this is a 500 team with an excellent starting pitching staff. And there's a bunch of these free agents or people you could get at the trade deadline that you could just wait and hopefully you will still get. Because let's say Vladdy doesn't hit till July, then he's hitting like Vladdy in July. Well, we'd be thrilled to pick up a guy who could hit like that in July, right? So I'm excited that way.
Emily's new favorite player is Ernie Clement, by the way. Emily was watching the game with me the other night, and he made a couple of really nice plays. He put down one of the nicest bunts I've seen in quite some time, and that is a skill, by the way, to put down a perfect bunt. He also barehanded a throw, got to run around first. That was he had just a couple of really nice plays, almost in one sort of 10-minute chunk.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I'm not so worried about third base, man. Turner obviously had a couple of rough throws, but he's not supposed to be there. But
yeah,
Clement and IKF can play defense.
sure they can.
Like they
Yeah.
really can.
Yeah. I was just pulling up Schneider's stats. So, the last 7 games, if you were to take a guess, what Schneider's batting average is, just throw a number at me. Last 7 games.
Oh man, I haven't. I watched all the last
Just guess.
seven
Just
games, and
guess. You don't have to.
you know what? I'll guess then. Like just like is he a 260 hitter? I'd love that. Or is he
The
doing really
last
poorly?
week, he's hitting 350.
Really?
That's Schneider,
You know,
and
I think what
he's
the challenge I think is because there's not regular playing. Like they all kind of meld. Like Clement, Schneider, Biggio, IKF are sort of like this amalgamation blob
yeah,
player.
yeah.
And if that player hits 260 with 25 home runs, like or average, like sort of is in that realm, I can take 3 players that are basically that dude, right?
Well, he's got to get some more playing time, but here's another free agent that can, I think, turn it on. Chris Bassett. Uh,
Mm.
you've got a career 3.56 ERA, but Chris this season has a 5.45 ERA. Uh, he's had a couple of rough outings where he's got absolutely destroyed, but Chris Bassett is much better than his ERA this year. I'll tell you. I think he's got it up here to turn that around. So I think you're absolutely honest up in here, Drew. We're 1/6 of the way through the season, and the Jays are not out of it by any means. I think we're 6 games back at first. I'll check that out. But
Yeah, hardly anybody can be out of it at this point. Like I think we got to
unless
remember we're
unless you're
five.
the Miami Marlins, then you're
Yeah, true. We're 5 weeks into the season,
yeah,
everybody, and like 10 game changes at the All-Star break are that. So I try to look at this team by talent level and realize that with the pitching, the defense, and I'd say, enough elite offensive pieces if they're operating at an elite level to get by. Look, a team that has a hitting Vladimir Guerrero, Justin Turner, and Bo Bichette, and a solid George Springer is a decent offense if not all of them are sucking at once.
right.
And so that has been the case with the Jays for like a year. Like too big a percentage of talented people suck at one time. Everybody's going to suck throughout the season at some time. It's just the Jays, it all synced up like poorly for a year and a month now. And will that continue? Statistically, I don't think it will. I think there will be a period this season where we're on some 12 of 15 run and all the guys are hitting 350 and everyone's like, this is the team we were expecting. And you and I will be like, yeah. And I'll just try to remember that when they asked Tom Hanks the greatest advice that he was ever given in life, he said, this too shall pass. So this hitting shall pass. All like the debates we're having will pass. The Alec Manoah thing will pass. Like I still remember listening to a 30-minute conversation on the Fan about what to do when George Springer comes back. Does Marcus Semien get knocked out of the leadoff piece? Like 30 minutes, like it mattered. So this is a talented baseball team that's not playing up to its talent and is around 500
Yep.
despite stinking it up offensively. Like let's look at the positive side of that.
Well, speaking of the positive side, and also speaking of this too shall pass, I put up a personal accountability post on Friday, just before the start of first pitch, and I said, if the Jays sweep this series, Drew, they didn't win the first game.
Okay, so no.
They didn't do that. But I said if the Jays sweep this series and if Alec Manoah gets called up and starts on Sunday, or I said one of the games, that I would personally, live on Drew Jays Talk, I would eat an Uncrustable.
An Uncrustable. Why is this a big deal? Are they not delicious? They Vladdy and George seem to think they're delicious. Although I worry that if you eat an Uncrustable, you will become as bad an actor as Vladdy and George are. Although he really can be convinced he was enjoying that big green chair in right field.
Listen, I think George, I've said this before, I think George is one of the best athlete actors I've seen. But I'll tell you this. The Jays did not win Friday night, so I'm off the hook legally, ethically, morally, responsibly speaking. But I'm gonna up the ante, Drew.
Okay.
If Alec wins today,
Like he wins or the Jays win?
He wins.
He gets the W.
He gets the dub. He gets the dub.
Okay.
If Alec gets 7 strikeouts.
Okay, hold on. So he gets the W and 7 strikeouts.
He gets the W and 7 strikeouts.
Okay.
I will, on next week's episode of JJ's Talk, right live in front of you, I will toast and I will consume an Uncrustable right in front of you and the rest of whoever tunes in.
Excellent, because there's nothing I enjoy more than listening to people eat near a microphone.
I'll mute myself. Yeah. The general consensus, and I love that they're sponsoring the team, but the general consensus is the Uncrustable is not a tasty, delicious treat.
Oh, it is not a tasty, delicious treat.
So this will be a challenge. But hey, you never know. Maybe I'll find out that it's something, maybe like a hidden gem.
I got something here written down, brother. I so appreciate you doing that. There's something that happened earlier in the week, but I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure we came back to it, because sometimes Drew Jay's Talk skews like the more recent things are what we're going to talk about.
Sure.
Just want to say, Drew loves the UmpCam. Drew really loves the UmpCam. I want more of the UmpCam. I will say this about the Apple broadcast. I like that they do that half inning with just nothing but the sound of the ballpark. I think that is a great feature. I think there are things on the Apple broadcast that are cool. And I do think their commentator actually has some pretty cool insights, and I think buys a little bit more into the newer analytics. And so I think has some insights that I'm not used to hearing necessarily from Buck and the gang. But I don't know why I still find that. I think it's too casual in grading.
Well,
but I just wanted to say I like the UmpCam, and I wanted to give some shout outs to some of the broadcast work that was done, because we sometimes lean a little heavy on the Jays media, right? And I just wanted to give credit where credit was due. There were some things on the broadcast this week I did enjoy, and that made them a little different for me, whether I did enjoy some of those ones or not.
I will tell you that the Jays broadcast head to toe is I say best in class. It's impossible to compare them, but it is worth mentioning the behind the scenes people. Like I'm not going to list them by name. There's hundreds of people, but the Jays broadcast is a prepared broadcast. They not only research their team, but they research the opponent. And you see guys like Buck and Dan, and but not just them, uh, on the field during batting practice, and they're getting right up to the minute tidbits, and they're frankly, I think the players respect them, and they're getting good conversations. Um, what I don't like is when you are watching a broadcast. Maybe it's the visiting team, maybe it's the Apple TV broadcast, frankly, and the people just haven't actually done the prep work. I think
Yeah,
it
they're just
shows.
reading it from a binder.
They're reading from a binder. They're showing frankly a favoritism. Like I really felt that we were the visiting team on the Apple broadcast. I really felt like they were so excited about what's going on in Washington and kind of passively talking with the Jays. And I
At
think,
first, I did think it was a Washington broadcast.
yeah,
Sorry about it, interrupt. At first, I
no,
was just
you're
like,
bang
"Oh
on.
wow, am I on the wrong feed?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and within the first inning, they were sort of already in that sort of complain tone about the Jays, and I get it. The Jays have had a rough couple of weeks, but um, yeah, it's sort of I think in previous Drew Jays talks, you and I have said, hey, no, we want our broadcast to be homers, so maybe it's just hey, get used to it. But Cam is all right. The perspective is cool. Uh, gives me an upset stomach.
it's better than
And
catcher cam. They used to do it with catcher cam, and that was super shaky. The
oh,
ump
I
cam I
didn't
found
like it.
a
Yeah.
little bit more steady, right?
Well, and the fly cams that sort of emulate a drone. They really started in the NFL, and they've brought them to the other sports as well. Um, those cameras, like there's other broadcasts who who do those all the time, and you'll see the camera sort of following the runner home, or um, they'll show a lot more audience shots. It's interesting, but yeah, you know what? I don't want to. Again, this is not a complaint. I'm a super picky guy with this stuff.
Mhm.
We've talked about how with the new renovations at the park, it seems like we're watching the Toronto Dominion Bank Blue Jays as opposed to the Toronto Blue Jays. But leave that for another conversation.
I just wish it
Um,
wasn't so green and shiny. It
yeah,
just, yeah, it's just very green and shiny. Like, thank you for the support of the team, 100%. Just, it's very green and shiny. So,
where's the blue? Like, did someone not
yeah,
call this out? Like,
it,
blue.
it yeah, I do enjoy, man, listening to other teams and broadcasters' perspectives on the Jays.
Okay,
And it's interesting because you know what they do is they talk to the commentators. So what you're hearing from the road commentators is actually what they've been told by internal people. And so I find that to be a bit of an eye opener because you can sort of learn some things that maybe aren't said to the Toronto media because it got said in a candid conversation and then gets repeated without attribution. But you know that came from inside the Jays when
right.
someone's like, but then you hear them be like Yimi Garcia, and you're like, guys, come on, like do a little research ahead of time. But I'm sure Buck does that. Buck calls Jays players by the wrong name
Oh,
sometimes. You know
sure he
what I
does.
mean?
Sure he
So
does. Well, we heard. I don't know if it was Buck. I can't remember. It might have. No, it wasn't Buck. It wasn't Dan. Um,
sometimes I feel like our podcast is actually like Blue Jays Media this week by Drew and Drew. like who is great this week is the folks at the desk. Which, by the way, we should talk about some of the folks they've had come and guest on the Jays broadcast. They've been great. Some of the guest folks that come in.
sorry, just the tail end. Joe
Yeah,
Siddle.
that
He
was my
he
bad.
was he was Joe Siddle was called John Schneider John Gibbons the other day, and that was very funny to me. I had a good little
Yeah,
chuckle. I mean, if Joe can screw up a name or two, I can screw up a name or two also. Um, True.
yeah.
We're just first pitch is in about 40 minutes here, but let's talk about the week upcoming. I like looking forward with you. Um, we
Yeah,
have to pull up the calendar here.
yeah, I got it in front of me, my man. We had a 3-5 since we last talked. It's amazing how just that win last night kind of changes things. Like another win today, and all of a sudden the Jays are, they're 4-6 in the last 10. They're a game away from 500. But They had a rough stretch there. 3-5 since we last talked before Drew Jay's talk, but we got one versus the Nats today. We got one of those annoying 2-day
Yeah.
off weeks, which I'm sure the team loves, but it sucks for us. We
Yeah.
got one versus the Nats. We got Monday off. Two versus the Phillies midweek. One of those strange NL AL 2-day back and forth, and then three versus the Twins back in from Friday to Sunday. And so we've got ourselves 3, 4, 5, 6 games likely between now and maybe the next Hex Man. We might only have 4 games between the next Jays talk, depending on when we do it. So yeah, that's what we got. Nats, Phillies, Twins, my friend. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I'm just telling everyone here, but yeah, it'll probably be Saturday next week. It'll be a week. It'll be 6 days from today. I think that we do our next show. What do I think? So the Twins are smoking hot right now. I have to look how the Phillies are doing. The Phillies are probably just in the middle of the pack, if anything. Losing Trey Turner's not great for them. But let me just see NL standings. What do I think? I mean, I think I'm big on Manoah. I think he's going to win today, but I think the Phillies. Okay, sorry, the Phillies are doing quite good. They're first in the East, in the NL East. Phillies are always tough. Always tough. Of course, we play them a lot in spring training, just being up the road in Clearwater. But yeah, besides the Dodgers and maybe the Braves, I guess the Phillies would be that team I'm scared of. Interestingly, the Braves are in second place behind the Phillies. So
That
yeah,
will change. The Braves are a really good baseball team.
sure,
Another one of
sure.
those, big stars not playing where they might. And
Well,
so
so
if
you're the
everybody heats
Braves,
up
but
in June, man,
you're the Braves, but you lose Spencer Strider. That changes your season, right?
yeah. Well,
One in
you lose.
five.
You definitely lose it. That's one thing about the Jays, right? Is if you lost a front end starter, it would be bad.
Right.
But like Barrios would be a front end starter for like if we're talking pitchers who would be top 2 in other rotation. Barrios would be top 2. Gosman would be top 2. Right now, Kikuchi, but I wouldn't say his pedigree is top 2. Bassett wouldn't be. Manoah, as he was 2 years ago, would be top 2, right? So you've got at least 3 players in your rotation that could be front end 1A, or at least 2 starters for other teams. The Jays losing a front end starter would be less disastrous for them than almost any other team, and that's great to be, especially if Rodriguez wasn't hurt.
Well, and just to close the loop on the Braves for a second, they still have Max Fried, they still
Yeah,
have Chris Sale, they still have Charlie Morton, so they're going to be okay.
Chris Sale still
Um,
scares me, man. I don't care. Chris Sale is still a terrifying pitcher.
and just don't leave scissors anywhere near him.
Yeah.
We have a couple against the Phillies, and then we're into Minnesota. So Minnesota has won something like 13 in a row.
It's funny though. By then, we could be playing them on Friday, and they could have gone on a 4-game skid. And baseball's weird that way.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, and they're as of yesterday, they're 12 games in a row. And it's the longest win streak they've had since 1991. So the Twins are doing something right. Let's think about the week. How do you think? Like including today, what do you think?
I think the Jays are going to go 4-2.
Okay.
I'm bullish on the Jays this week. I feel like although the broadcast keeps making a big deal out of the fact that they're only scoring in 1 or 2 innings, how many innings do you need to score in? I don't care if you score all your runs in 1 inning. Like,
You
look,
just need one more than the other team. Yeah.
if math is not working for us in any other way, then I am absolutely fine with the team batting 220 with runners in scoring position, but scoring 5 runs in the second, and that's it.
Right.
So I think the Jays are going to go 4-2. I think that the Twins are now at that pace where a super hot team naturally starts to cool off. Not a lot of people win 20 in a row. You get to 9, 10, 11, 12, you cool off. And that's fun. Like, that's great. So I think we're hitting when they're cooling. And I think they're going to take 1 out of 2 versus the Phillies. I do not know what's going to happen today with Manoah.
Well, Drew, as always, it's good to talk to you. I like your positivity. It's why we do the show, and thank you for all your great insights today. I
But
like
thanks
the.
to
Go ahead.
No, man, I just wanted to say it was awesome working with you today. You were the man in charge today. You had all the questions and you like had it all set up. You even put me on a hypothetical for leadership, which I
Listen,
liked, man. That I was just like, I didn't expect to have to work today.
we got to leave the audience better than we found them, Drew. Is how I've
Oh,
always said.
Awesome, man. Well, I love working with you, brother.
Right back
I'm
at
looking
you.
forward to a Sunday afternoon game because I'll tell you, I don't know about you or any of the other listeners, but it's become like a weekly tradition that I clean the apartment while the Jays game is on Sunday afternoon, right? So you put the headphones on, so if you wander into the other room, you still know what's going on. But my kitchen will be clean, my bed will be made, my laundry will be done. So hopefully, when all that is done, I can settle down for the last 3 innings with a nice 6-0 lead.
Here's my prediction for today. I think it's gonna be just. I think the Jays are gonna back Manoah. I think it's gonna be 9-2.
Nine to
We're gonna
two.
explode. We're gonna explode. It's gonna be 9-2, and then the Phillies. Yeah, we're gonna have some momentum. A couple of days off, some rest. You're gonna see. You're gonna see. I think we're gonna take 2 out of 2 from the Phillies. I'm just feeling it. I just want those. And then I think we come back strong, but I think it's a grueling fight. Let's see. Sunday. So we might actually see Alec again. No, will we see Alec again on Friday if he pitches today?
It's a Sunday, and then we're off Monday. No, I don't think
No,
so.
so
It
we'll
would
see
be
him
next
on probably
Monday.
the
Yeah.
Saturday.
It
Anyway.
and I think honestly, man, just so people don't think that we're not paying attention, the bullpen will be okay.
Oh, the bullpen's gonna be
Again, there's
fine.
talent in the bullpen. It has not been pretty. Let's look at the bright side. The games stay exciting no matter what the lead is. So
Yeah,
it was 4-0 yesterday. The broadcast made me feel, and the bullpen made me feel like we were down a run the entire game.
yeah.
And so, hey, if we can keep 4-0, 5-0 games interesting, you know what? I'm going to look at it that way. Maybe. No, I actually hate it. But everyone, the bullpen will be okay. It'll be the best in baseball some months, and it'll be crappy for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And that's just how bullpens work.
They are, and listen, like Chad Green will be back real soon, and Swanson, Swanson. I mean, geez, I hate ending the show on this note, but just don't forget, guys, that Swanson's child was severely injured in Florida, like a month and a half ago. That affects people. Let's give him some grace and let's cheer our team on.
Yeah.
Let's go Blue Jays. Let's go all the way, Drew.
Let's go Blue Jays. Let's go all the way. I'll see you next week, big guy, and I'll be on the text line with you soon.
All right. Have a great day. Bye,
You too,
everyone.
big guy. Peace.